Good evening, I'm David Susskind. Now, you may think you know all about Truman Capote, but you don't. Tonight, you're going to see a Capote that you have never seen before. I guarantee you an interesting experience. We'll begin after this pause.
Halston, but not me.
My guest tonight, Truman Capote, leads two lives. He's one of the foremost American authors. That's life one. He's also a celebrated man about town, whose extravagant and sometimes controversial lifestyle is the stuff of which novels are made, to put it loosely. That's true, isn't it?
Very loosely, in any event.
Why do you do things like that? Why do you do things that get you into columns and get you into the news section of the newspapers? You're too good for that. You've got a genius of a kind.
I don't do anything. Since I ever first began to publish and was in New York for various reasons, newspapers just seem to be attracted to me.
Wait a minute, Truman. You went on another television show, and you went on in a condition that was not you at your best. And it was shocking, and you shouldn't have done it. Why did you do it?
Well, because I didn't know I was doing it. I mean, I wouldn't have done it if I'd had the faintest idea of what was happening.
There was a show at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes, I know, but you see, as the implication was that I'd had something to drink, I hadn't had anything to drink at all.
Well, what made you so woozy and hazy and thick-tongued?
Because I had taken a pill called a Tuinol, and I'd never taken one before. I'd been at the dentist, and I took this thing called a Tuinol. It didn't have any effect on me. The program started, and as it was about 3 or 4 minutes into it, it began to have this terrific effect on me, but I didn't know it. I had no idea that anything rather odd had happened about it. But that was completely an accident. I've explained all of that.
But Truman, what about on a lecture tour down south? You fell off the platform.
I did not fall off any platform.
Well, you took a dive
No,
down
no,
from the lectern.
No, nothing of the kind ever happened.
The New York Times is in error?
They did never say that. The New York Times never said anything of the kind because it didn't happen.
Truman, weren't you non-compass metis on that platform, and didn't the dean of students...
No. Do you want to know what happened? Do you know what happened? Really?
Oh, sure.
I walked onto the platform of the University of Maryland, and the microphone was dead. And I started talking, and I realized the microphone was dead, and I walked backstage. I stood there for about 2 or 3 minutes. Then I walked backstage, and I said, what's the matter with the microphone? And they said, oh, there's something wrong, they're fixing it. And I said, how long will it be to fix it? And they said, oh, it's almost ready. It'll be ready in a minute. And so I walked back on the stage, and I said something to the audience, and the microphone was still dead, and it was dead a total of 10 minutes, and I walked back of the stage, and there was a reporter there from a Washington newspaper who I didn't know was there. In fact, several reporters were there, and I got into an argument with the stage manager about it. And I said, well, I'm not going to stand out there on the stage like that, like a perfect fool. And I walked off, and that's exactly what happened. I have lots of witnesses to prove it because they went down there with me.
You didn't fall off?
I never.
You weren't
anything of the kind.
You weren't inebriated?
No.
The dean of students didn't say, get that man off here?
Not at all. Nothing of the kind ever happened.
Did you see the reportage on that incident?
I saw it, but I didn't say it said anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
I saw what they said. It was erroneous, but I'm telling you exactly what happened.
Well, you should sue for libel.
Why should I sue? If I sued everybody for every lie that said about me in the newspapers, I would be doing nothing else. I have enough litigation problems as it is.
Yeah, you are suing somebody.
No,
Gore
I'm
Vidal.
not. Gore Vidal is suing me. I'm not suing
he's suing
anybody. But he sues everyone. He rarely has litigation on his mind.
No, he just sues Bill Buckley and you. He doesn't sue everybody.
He lost the Bill Buckley suit. No, he's also suing, I believe that he's suing Robert Guccione. the editor of Penthouse magazine.
Oh, yes, on that Caligula movie that they made.
Right.
Which has never been put together and released, which makes you very sad because you feel badly when the fellow author's work is not. You are sad.
I'm always sad about Gore. It's very sad that he has to breathe every day.
Oh, Truman, you really like him down deep.
It must be awfully deep.
Truman, why do you go to Studio 54 so often? What is
Because
the
I
appeal?
like it.
The noise, the din?
No, I'll tell you quite seriously why I like Studio 54. It's a kind of total amalgamation of all sorts of things. I like nightclubs, period. I always have. I've been going to them since I was 15 or 14 years old. You see, I'm from New Orleans, which is a big nightclub town. And I was brought up there in Alabama, but my family's house was right in the quarter. And so, I don't know, I spent a lot of times in cafes and nightclubs, and always have. And, I don't know, when I was first in New York, I was working at the New Yorker magazine. I used to go almost every day. I was about 17 years old then. I used to go every day to have lunch at the Store Club with Una O'Neill and Carol Marker she was then, but then she became Carol Saroyan.
But you wanted to be seen.
No. They were just friends of mine, and we used to go there to have lunch every day.
Would you
It was
have gone
just
to
a thing I
Needix
liked.
or the Waldorf?
No, but I liked the thing. Yes, of course I would have gone to Needix or anything. I like things like that, too. I like automats. I always was mad about automats. I still go to the automat on 42nd Street and, 3rd Avenue?
I've never seen you in an automat.
Well, perhaps you've never been anywhere, but I like to go to them. I go to all kinds of places, but still you're getting off the point. I think that Studio 54 is the most interesting nightclub that I have ever been in my life anywhere in the world, and I have lived everywhere in the world. I've lived everywhere from Moscow to Hong Kong, Los Angeles, New York, Venice, Rome.
Aren't people
Never
making,
has there a nightclub been as amusing as Studio 54.
But aren't people there absurd in their dress, in their attitude, and isn't there a lot of spaced out folks stretched out there?
Well, just
some of the most prominent
maybe
people
a little
in
stretched out from the fatigue of dancing. No,
Come on,
David.
Truman.
Come on, where's your sense of humor? Get with it. 54 is a very amusing, very fun place. What's nice about it is I think it's one of the healthiest places I've ever seen. People do very little drinking there and very little drugging, too, for that matter. They're having
Truman,
a really good... Now, I
Truman.
ought to know whereof I speak.
Truman, there's sniffing of various stuff going on there. They are like...
Well, will you tell me any nightclub in the entire United States or Canada or Europe where people aren't sniffing or smoking something, but nobody's out there nodding with heroin? It's a bunch of people having a good time. They are really having a good time. All they're doing is dancing and laughing and having a good time. I don't understand
They're
this whole
piled
phobia
up-
about Studio 54.
I have no phobia.
I think it's just pure envy. I really mean that. I think people are just envious of any kind of success whatsoever. Studio 54 is a success, so therefore it's got to be knocked all the time.
Truman, I have seen you on one of those lovely banquettes with your performer star friends and your creative designing associates, and you're all somewhere else. I said, hello, Truman, and you sort of giggled.
You saw me personally?
Of course
you
I
with your
saw
very
you.
own eyes?
With my own eyes, yes, these eyes. I even said, my God, can that be Truman? And I put my glasses
that's
on.
Interesting. When was it?
Oh, I don't know. It was a night that one of these people was having a birthday and you were feeling no pain, and it was a gay, wild jamboree, and you were singing. You remember singing?
Yeah, I sing a lot. Well, I don't know, but I'd...
Would you recommend it to your sister?
Sure, I'd recommend it to anybody. I think it's one of the most innocent, beguiling places I've ever seen. It's everything the way it ought to be. It's very democratic. It's all kinds of colors, all kinds of sizes, boys and boys together, girls and girls together, girls and boys together, poor people, rich people, taxi drivers, anything you want. It's all mixed up together. That's what I like about it. I mean, the old style nightclub, like El Morocco
It's
or
closed.
Stork Club. Well, no, El Morocco's
club.
going.
It's a club.
But I mean, the point is, it was for rich people. It wasn't for people out. Well, ostensibly, they were all out to have a good time, but it was for rich people.
Truman, your passion
Perfectly
for poor
ordinary
people
people.
is a new hobby.
What are you talking about? I've always liked all kinds of people.
You're always on people's yachts and at their great mansions on Long Island, and you're in the Greek islands cruising, and you're at the thing in Spain with the Pamplona bull runs. And
So what? That's just another thing to do, isn't it? I don't see what that's got to do with whether you like people or don't. I like all kinds of people. I like rich people because they aren't always trying to borrow something from me.
Are you trying to borrow something from them?
Oh, no, I give a great deal more than they give.
Well, what do you give in return for 3 weeks on a super yacht?
A lot of interesting conversation.
Right. How expensive is it?
How
Room
expensive
and
is
board
what?
and visit to gambling casinos in the Aegean Sea? I mean, you've been...
I like to travel. If I'm going to travel, I'd rather travel on a very beautiful yacht. Who wouldn't?
Right, well, where's the passion for the poor coming in, those little folks coming into Studio 54?
I
The
pick
little
them. I
cabs.
pick them up on the street and take them to Studio 54 so they can have a good time.
God, you're a humanitarian. I never thought of you that way.
Actually, I'm a great humanitarian.
Well, we'll be back for the very human Truman Capote after this pause. You asked me if I knew anybody who didn't smoke
Anyway,
grass.
the real problem.
Yes,
is
there were
the
2
alcohol.
priests and a bush doctor who just returned from Australia. I remember, had not.
You
any-
remember. They were probably growing it.
Truman. Truman, you look better than I've seen you look in a long time. You used to be rather heavy. Chunky would be a kind word. You're down to fighting weight. What are you, 135, 138?
You hit it right on the nail. 135 is exactly what I want.
And that old bloat that probably came from booze and or other hobbies is gone. And you look bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Mm-hmm. You look beautiful.
Well, I go swimming a lot. I do a lot of exercising.
Why?
Oh, because I like it. I like to go swimming.
It's a latter-day
No,
hobby.
I've always liked to go swimming. Well, I like a lot of sports, actually, curiously enough. I like to ski. I like to swim.
Truman, why?
I went all the way to Miami to see the Super Bowl, purely as a fan. I wanted to play, but they wouldn't let me.
You in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it was fun.
Hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers would throw you over the goal for a... why are you having a facelift?
Oh, I don't know, because I just decided that, well, I think there's, you see, I believe in all of the little services that you can have done to make you feel better. I'm a great believer in dentists.
Well,
And I have all my teeth, and they look very good.
They're beautiful.
And I believe in, I've always done exercises, whether I
What's
had weight or
exercise
not.
got to do with the face? You have no face to lift.
Oh, yes, I do.
Why?
It's not, it's just a small, tiny thing that I'm having done. It's not some major surgery. It's just a tiny little adjustment.
Where are you doing
to your
it?
skin. Right here. They're just going to take a cut right here under my chin. It's actually a new operation. They've only been able to do it for about the last 8 months because they didn't know how to do it before. If they had known how to do it before, I would have done it. But you see, before they really did do facelifts. I mean, if you wanted to have, if you want what I wanted done is right here. There's a certain amount of loose skin under your chin. I mean, you can have it at any age, when you're 18 or something. There's a certain amount of loose skin right there. It was the one thing that they could never do in a facelift. They could cut above the ears like this, you see, and then draw.
Have you
the
had plastic
faces.
surgery before?
Just, no, well, yes, I did. I had my eyes done about, I had my eyes done about 4 years ago.
Were you getting baggy or something?
Well, actually, the upper lid, both of my eyes, was rather heavy and always had been. And I had this kind of a twitch in my eye that was really literally, I didn't do it for cosmetic reasons, though I certainly would have. I have no hesitation about that whatsoever. But it did help my eyesight a great deal.
Why are you on this beauty kick? Are you in
It's
love?
not a beauty
Are you
kick.
going
Oh, God, no. Far from it. If I'm in love with anybody, I'm in love with myself.
That's a long affair, isn't it?
Oh, I love it. It's permanent at any rate. No. It's
Do you
just
love
you gotta
anybody
do it.
else?
Yes, a great many people.
Whom do you love?
Well, I'm not sending out any Valentines this year, but I'm very fond of a great many people. Aren't you?
Well, don't switch the burden.
No, I think
mean,
it's
I'll
good
get to
to
the
switch
people
the
I love
burden.
if you're really interested. But whom do you love? I mean,
I'm very fond of your wife. She's great.
well, she'll be.
I may send her a Valentine.
All right. After David Susskind, are there any other people we might know?
That I'm very fond of?
Yeah.
Oh,
God, you'd think loves would leap to your mind.
yes, well, it's just that I have quite a number of people. That old question, do you have a lot of friends?
I didn't ask you about
No,
friends.
I know you didn't, but I'm coming back from it in reverse. The thing is that people usually say, oh, well, I know 40 people, but I only have 3 or 4 people or friends that I really trust, you know? I don't feel that way at all. I feel I have about 30 or 40 friends that I really trust, and I have good reason to think so now, because the last year of my life was certainly pretty strenuous, and I knew who was really ready to help me if I needed it, and who was just...
Truman, if you're worried about naming people you love because you
I'm
may
not.
omit somebody, you can come back and say,
Oh, I
incidentally, I'm here to
know.
describe some more love people. But, I mean, tell us.
It's not that at all.
Joyce Susskind, I don't blame you for loving her. She's
She's
terrific.
a very nice person, very good friend of mine. Gosh, I don't know. I like so many people.
I said love.
Well, when I like somebody, it amounts to loving them. As a matter of fact, I really don't quite see the difference. I mean, you see,
Truman, you're
talking
ducking
about
the issue.
being. No, I'm not. You're talking about being in love. I
No,
think
I'm
that's
talking
what
about
you're
loving.
All right, then. All right, let's see. Well, I loved very much Barbara Paley. She died last year. I love Andy Warhol. I love Halston. They're all real good friends of mine. I love Christopher Isherwood. I think Christopher's a wonderful person, and I love him. I loved Isaac Dennison. Again, last year, or 2 years, no, more than that. I love Norman Mailer. I know you don't like Norman Mailer
No,
particularly.
I like him pretty well.
No, I have a
don't
great
love him.
admiration for him. And my great friend Jack Dunphy. I love my editor at Random House,
Joe
Fox, and I love my lawyer, Alan Schwartz. I really do love him.
I love your
Totally
lawyer,
dependent
Alan
on him.
Schwartz.
He's a wonderful person.
But if you love people, why do you hurt them? I mean, you hurt Barbara Paley.
I didn't hurt her.
Yes,
She hurt me.
No, you
Oh.
wrote answered prayer
Yes,
excerpts
so
in Esquire.
She didn't appear in it.
No, but her husband did.
So other people said.
Truman Capote, don't sit there and tell me that you didn't mean that character to be William Paley.
I can sit here and tell you anything I want to. It's a free country.
But you wouldn't lie.
Despite you're trying to turn it into a fascist state, it's still a free country.
Truman, you took good friends and some that you loved, and you used them in the excerpts, which incidentally I thought were brilliant pieces of writing. Really brilliant. And they appeared in Esquire.
Well,
1,
Mr.
2,
Paley
3
was
times.
not for it and so far, but incidentally, just for your own information, not that it matters, Mr. Paley was not hurt about that excerpt from my book at all. And had it been him, we would never have had any contretemps about it whatsoever.
Was it other people that were upsetting you?
There was nobody that has appeared in that book. The only two people that I know of that were upset about it were both had no reason to be. One is a woman who believed very much that she was the character in the book, one of the characters, and she wasn't. I mean, she really, truly wasn't. It was based on somebody, and somebody who was a very good friend of hers. But people convinced her that she was the person, and she's the one person, and I loved that woman, and I still do. I don't blame her if that's the way she feels about it. There's nothing I can do about it. But she's quite mistaken, and it wasn't her. Now, it is true that Barbara Paley was upset about it, and because she is a person of a very fine character and very definite ideas of right and wrong, she decided that I had done something very wrong that she was not going to forgive me for. Now, I respected her completely, that opinion of hers. It was like something that we agreed on.
Truman, when you love people, and they have been friends, and you have availed yourself of their generosity and their friendship over and over again in a million ways, is it fair to then take the intimacies that you've shared and fictionalize them, to
There was
use them?
nothing fictionalized about it.
Well, you used details that probably were true or you suspected were true in a piece of fiction called Answered Prayers, which wounded them deeply to the point where they said Truman Capote is out of our lives.
There was no reason for anybody to have been wounded. There was nothing hurtful about that at all. But anyway, I'm going to answer your question quite differently, David, because I think the line you're on is very narrow and is pointless. Because
Has it hurt you?
No, it has not. And all my troubles, the things that I had happened to me in the last couple of years, had nothing to do with my work. I'd like to make that clear right from the beginning, because a lot of the things that I've read about myself in the last couple of years, one would assume the implication of it was that these things were happening because I was upset about something in connection with my own writing and my work. What happened was an entirely personal problem. It was something to do with me. It was something inside of me and my own relationship with other people. And it had nothing to do with my work, whatever.
Did you lose a lot of friends?
No, I did not lose any friends that I know of, with two exceptions. I would say two people I really did lose as friends because they were very upset about it. Okay, but now I'm going to go back to this question about friendships and using material, etc., in your work. Okay. First of all, to begin with, a writer has only their own experience to work from. They have nothing else. That's all Proust had. When he wrote A Remembrance of Things Past, he wrote about his friends in Paris, his relationships with them. He could never have written the book if he hadn't written about his friends and what he knew about, etc. A writer's material is totally derived, or at least a certain kind of writer, a certain social observer, of which I consider myself that kind of a journalistic, novelistic type of writer, genre. That's all they have. They have nothing else. There's no other material they have. So everybody knew that I was writing this book. You knew that I was writing this book. I even let you read parts of this book.
You came and read parts aloud.
Yes. You weren't shocked or amazed.
No, but I'm not in the book.
Okay, who knows? There's only your time may come, David.
Now, you profess to love Joyce Susskind. You came to our home night after night and read aloud from Answered Prayers.
No, one night, not night.
No, 3 nights.
1 night.
2 nights I went to bed.
Okay, have it your way. Anyway, the point is...
If we showed up in that book, wouldn't we have good reason to be hurt?
Don't worry, you're not going to show up in the book.
Good. Thank heavens.
I really shouldn't have let you off the hook that so easily. But the point is that Every writer has a right to choose and use their own material. That's my material. Everybody knew I was doing this book. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew what the kind of a book it was, and there was no mystery there. I was not pretending or camouflaging anything at all. If you take your chances, you take your chances. That's it. Anyway,
Answered prayers.
the book ends in historical fact. The book ends in 1965. Everything that happens after 1965, there's nothing in my book that ever happened to anybody after 1965. So, everybody's home free.
Answered prayers, your idea, it's from an ancient saying that the worst thing that could happen to you in life is to have your prayers answered.
Now, it comes from St. Teresa, who says, more tears are shed over answered prayers than unanswered ones. And I thoroughly believe that to be a great truth.
Is it the story of Jackie and Lee Radswell, the sisters?
Well, they actually aren't in the book, except they're mentioned occasionally. And, but do I think that their lives are a demonstration of answered prayer?
Oh, yes, Truman. You're hard on a witness stand, yes. Are they, Jackie Onassis and Lee Radswell?
The way you phrased the question, it might have been that...
No, not by name, but are their lives the prototype for your...
All right, I'll answer that by simply saying that I think that anybody who has a definite goals and ambition, things that they want, that they think that they want. Let's say that before you met Joyce, there was some other woman that you knew that you were madly in love with, and you thought that if I could only have that woman, if I could only be married to that person, then I would have everything that I wanted, and that would be my answered prayer, okay?
It was Princess Margaret.
So you got what you wanted, and she turned out to be very nice, really. Very, very nice. Everything is very agreeable. But it's just like those mechanical rabbits at the greyhound races. Those rabbits are set on the track at a certain angle, with machinery going at a certain pace, that no matter how hard that greyhound races, he is never going to catch that rabbit. And nobody in life who has really has very serious driven ambitions and goals is ever going to have their prayer answered, because the moment they get it answered, another prayer is substituted.
Are Jackie Onassis and Lee Radswell her sister? Are they the prototypes of the heroines of your book?
No.
Okay.
Positively not. But I'm certainly a person who has had prayers answered and found out that I just hadn't caught the rabbit that I wanted to catch. Everybody has. You have. I'm sure.
I'd like to know about your answered prayer, because you had a hand in one of my answered prayers, I'll tell you that. We'll be back in a minute. What answered prayers? What answered prayers came to pass for you that proved to you to be disappointing and hurting? You wanted to be a famous writer.
Yes, I wanted to be a famous writer, and I became a famous writer. But it certainly didn't solve... I started to say all my problems. I'll amend that to say I don't think it solved any of my problems.
Well, it solved your vocational problem. You wanted to be a famous writer? You wanted to be
Well,
famous?
I think I could have been just about anything I wanted to be within certain areas. I really would have liked to have been a lawyer. Do you know why?
So you could sue people?
No, because I have the one thing that I've watched lawyers working in courts a lot, merely because of my other work, reportage, writing a book like In Cold Blood, going to courts. But I have an extraordinary memory. And the 3 or 4 really, really good lawyers that I've talked to or met, that was the key to the whole thing. This absolutely extraordinary memory of remembering every little detail, and I have that kind of memory. And I like the whole kind of thing of, I would like to have been a courtroom lawyer working on difficult cases.
Edward Bennett Williams.
Yeah, he's awfully good.
Louis Nizer.
No, I don't admire Mr. Nizer. He's, well, he has a certain charm, and he is a good lawyer, but
He's a great lawyer. What about Roy Cohn?
he's a very clever man.
Well, what personal prayer was answered that proved devastating? You've
Well, I met somebody that I thought that I really wanted them very much in my life, and then when I got them in my life, they turned out to be a complete nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just to use one example. I can think of others, but that's a very...
You fell in love with the wrong person. That happens
Yeah,
to
it
everybody.
happens to everybody, but it really had never happened to me before. I mean, never to that extent. I made a few little minor mistakes here and there, but I hadn't exactly got myself onto the Greyhound racetrack. I just mentioned that because I consider that's probably the most common prayer among all humans that, I mean, that it's happened to everybody, that particular kind of situation occurs.
Do you have any regret at a particular painful thing that you did to me? You came to me one day, we were neighbors in the same building, and you said, in your own inimitable way, I love this person whose life is just empty of accomplishment and she's so gifted and talented, and I want you to do a great television drama.
Talking about Lee Radziwill.
Yes.
And my idea was that you should make a remake of Laura.
No, your idea, I wish that had been your idea. Your idea was
The Voice of the Turtle.
Voice of the Turtle. Then
John
I
Van
said
Der
to you, because I was very sober, that Voice of the Turtle was a triumphant vehicle for the late Margaret Sullivan.
Right.
That the lady in the play was never off stage from the moment the curtain went up to the moment the play ended. That was a very demanding thing. Maybe we better think of something else. And incidentally, can she act? Can she act? You said. She's wonderful. And do you
Yes,
remember
I
that?
remember the entire thing, sure.
And then I said, Truman, I had a dream last night. Laura isn't in the play for one half of the play. Everybody talks about her, how beautiful she was.
It was
charming.
a good idea, too.
Yes, right. Then you said, I'll do the adaptation. And I said, oh, that's wonderful of you. And then you said, not only that, I've talked to the president of ABC, and we'll put it on ABC.
And we did.
Yes, we did. Now, it wasn't one of the triumphant achievements of that particular year, or any year, as a matter of fact. The newspapers and the magazines had a field day. They took this nice girl and crucified her.
Yes. Well, it would have happened regardless.
But why did you
wouldn't have
engineer it?
But listen, first of all, I thought that she was very good in it. I thought that the production was excellent. All the surrounding cast was good. I thought it was a first-class production. It got tremendously high ratings, if you remember.
Tremendous
Very,
ratings,
very high
damn
ratings.
it.
Now let's get into the pluses, all right? It got tremendously high ratings. Now, I think Lee was really quite good. You think she was adequate. Well, I think that's praise to say that she was adequate, considering it's the first time she had ever done anything like that, and was very nervous and under a lot of pressure. But we've got to admit that I hadn't foreseen it to the extent that it did, but I did foresee that no matter what she did, the press was going to come down on her like hell, and not entirely because of Lee Radziwill, but because a great deal of the press, and particularly at that time, less so now than it, but at that time they really wanted to say nasty things about Mrs. Kennedy, about Jackie, but they never could, because at that time Jackie was still a little saint. Mr. Onassis had never appeared on the horizon. She was still the widow lady, you know? But there was a lot of resentment and envy. Envy's the one thing that's wrong with this country among many things that are wrong with it, but people never recognize that. Americans are the most envious people in the world. with the possible exception of the French. They they love and adore success and fame and glamour, but they love to tear it down and throw the person in the mud and say the nastiest things they can about them. In all of this adulation of Jackie at that time, now we're pre-Onassis, pre-everything, we're the widow Kennedy, Underneath all of that, there was a tremendous animosity of envy for this beautiful girl who had everything. And here was this sister of hers, Lee Radziwill, having the nerve, because she was the sister of Mrs. Kennedy. Everybody said, oh, she wouldn't have even gotten the job if she wasn't Mrs. Kennedy's sister, which is perfectly true. Everybody was aware of that.
Capote.
And she wouldn't have gotten the job. Nobody, David Susskind wouldn't have produced it. ABC wouldn't have put it on the air. Naturally, it was going to have a whole thing come down on it, bang, you know? I didn't realize it would be quite so severe as it was, but even she knew that. But she was willing to take the risk because she wanted very much to have a life of her own. I think the whole thing, I don't look back on it with any regret. You seem to look back on it with regret.
How would you like to come on the Johnny Carson show for the rest of your life and they play Laura?
Yes, but that's a private joke between you and Johnny, and you know why. It hasn't anything to do with any long memory that you were the producer of Laura. It's a long memory in Johnny's life, but not in anybody else's.
Well, because I had a party in which I did a preview of that program for a group of people, of which you were one, and Ingrid Bergman and Johnny Carson, and they were some of them left the party.
Yeah. Well, you see, Johnny is, I suppose Johnny was offended because...
He was offended by the command of the rich and famous, by the fact that you can just say...
I think it was a little bit more different than that. I think perhaps there was some element of that in it, but I think it had something to do with his sense of professionalism.
Well,
I think he sort of resented the idea of a young lady who was not a professional being starred in an expensive production like that. That's what I really think it was about.
Well, yes, and I think justifiably so.
Well, then...
Now, do you know that the young lady today does not cuddle the memory to her bosom? I know that she's bitter about it. And you see, your work...
Well, so, I mean, I can't, what am I to say about it other than what I just said? In the end, perhaps, although I have never had this discussion with her, and I have talked about the program with her and other things that she's done, and she certainly has never expressed to me any bitterness about it. I mean that quite truthfully. I know that she had some feeling of hostility towards you, which I never...
And you don't think that that's ironic justice? That I was dragooned by you to do this act against the American public, and that today I am hated...
You're really making it too much of a federal case here.
Because it happened to me.
But you survived.
I would like you to do...
Joyce didn't divorce you. Your daughter Samantha didn't run away from home. You have all those millions and a numbered account in Switzerland. I really can't grieve over it, David, honestly.
I have to be thankful for minor pleasures, none of which...
As you get older, David, they all become minor.
All pleasures become minor with age?
Well, I don't know. I had to give up drinking. I had to give up smoking. I had to even give up taking an occasional sleeping pill. And I don't know. There are a few left, but I'm getting I'm getting so picky that that's practically non-existent too. My standards are getting very high.
Your monastic existence is depressing. We'll come back to this saga of woe after this pause. Truman, you've been a kind of friend and observer of the rich and famous for a long time. What makes them different aside from their money? They are different, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. The rich?
Yeah, Mrs. Guinness, the Paleys, the
They're
Kennedys.
Different because they serve better vegetables than other people. They have such delicious little tiny, scarcely born vegetables, and all out of season, and everything's great. little lambs that hardly were born, little tiny carrots, little peas,
Oh, it's beautiful.
fabulous things like that, you know?
Makes you fall in love. But aside from the little peas and carrots and the gorgeous cauliflower, I mean, what about them? Are they interested?
They're interested in each other.
Well, isn't that boring?
Well, you see, the rich in that sense, they do cling together. It's a real clique. I was quite fascinated to read, about Nelson Rockefeller's memorial service. People that I know for a fact didn't like Nelson at all. Were there.
Were you there?
No, I wasn't there.
Okay.
But, I mean, I know many very, very rich people who say they're going to give a big cruise on the Turkish coast. They've got a yacht with a crew of 26. They can have 14 guests, with a couple of exceptions of some sort of intellectual or somebody who knows a great deal about Turkish archaeology. Practically everybody on that yacht will be somebody who's very, very rich, because they cling together. Cling together partly out of... No.
Are
Just
they
like
boring?
life itself. Some of them are dumb and some of them are extraordinarily gifted and intelligent. Some of the most... Well, for instance, I'll give you an example of a man who's extremely intelligent in every way, cultivated, charming, a man that very few people, his picture scarcely ever appears in the paper or anything, Paul Mellon. He's certainly one of the 2 or 3 richest men in America, probably in the world.
Great
He couldn't possibly be more intelligent. I'll tell you another man that people don't hear about. His name is Robert O. Anderson.
Oh, yes.
He's the president of the Atlantic Richfield Oil Company. He's a great philanthropist, a man of tremendous charm and intelligence, very well read, very cultivated in every sense, a great friend of mine.
Mr. Paley is a cultivated, brilliant man.
Could not possibly be more so. He's the only man that I've ever met who has such an extraordinarily highly developed sense of aesthetic that one day I was watching him sharpen some pencils. He was just sitting at a desk with a little pencil sharpener, and he kept sharpening these pencils and putting them down. And finally he looked up at me and he said, "What are you looking at me like that for?" And I said, "Because it's really an aesthetic experience to watch you sharpen those pencils. You have such a precise idea of how it should be and how it should look and what color it should be and where it's going to be placed in that box." When Bill Paley walks into a room, his eyes scan it like with some magical thing, and he sees everything that's good and everything that's bad. That's why he had to marry a woman like Barbara Paley, who was perfection. All of these things.
Whom will he marry now, do you think?
I don't think that he would marry anybody again. I mean, he has a very nice life, hundreds of friends, they all adore him. And I'm sure he must be a lonely man without Barbara Paley, because she was really, really unique.
You've told us about some distinguished, sophisticated, intelligent rich. Who are some dreary rich?
Charles Revson. I mean, beyond that, you can't go.
I would agree with that, but he's very dead.
Well, that's one lucky thing, isn't it?
I mean, he was dreary and boorish. But he's gone, and he's in the bosom of the Lord, and we should not say anything unkind about it. Somebody lived.
I don't see why the dead should be immune. I think they're a good game myself.
Only because they can't answer back.
Who cares? They've got lots of relatives and lawyers and things. That eerie way of rising from the grave.
Oh, he's not coming back, is he?
Thank God, please, don't threaten us with that.
Who's alive, who's rich and dreary?
That's a tall order. Jerome Zipkin. You can't get drearier than that, and he's alive.
Yeah.
I could tell you a marvelous Zipkin story, but it isn't arable.
It isn't arable.
I mean, a recent one.
Well, don't tease us.
WWD calls him the social moth.
WWD is Women's Wear Daily.
Yeah.
You can't use those code words here, because we're talking to the great American public. How do you feel
Let's
about...
think of some. This is a good game. Rich, dreary people.
Yeah.
Rich, dreary people. David Rockefeller is very nice and very boring. Lawrence Rockefeller is very charming. That's a strange family.
How are the Kennedys? How's Jacqueline?
Well, you know, somebody asked me what I would give Jackie for a Christmas present. Some columnist asked me. And I said, oh, a sex change operation. And they said, what? A what? I said, a sex change operation. And they said, why would you give her a sex change operation? I said, well, the American public absolutely seems to die to have a Kennedy. And I'd rather they'd have Jackie than Teddy. Get it?
Yes. That's not all that complicated.
Just think it's bad taste, huh?
Well, I think it's questionable. How is she as a person, as a social being to talk with? I mean, gee, there's a wonderful story Philip Roth tells about being her escort. You know, his wife...
He's very funny.
He's very funny.
Very witty man.
His wife died in an accident in Central Park, and he was something of a social lion in the sense that he was a bachelor. He was a...
You're talking about Philip Roth?
Philip Roth.
Yeah.
And he was much
Extra man.
He was the extra man, and he was sought after. And I wonder if I can tell this. I'll think about that. What do you think of her as a social person at dinner? Her knowledge of the world, her concern with human life. From Women's Wear Daily, I only get a sense that she's a compulsive shopper, that she's in Valentino, and she's...
She is a compulsive shopper. A lot of people are. I'm a compulsive shopper. As a matter of fact, it's my favorite form of exercise.
To be with her is to bask in a particular radiance, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. There's something about Jackie. I've always liked her, you know. I knew her when, I knew her before she was ever married. And
Can we take her today? Have you seen her lately?
yes, I saw her in the club a couple of months ago.
She's not one of those people who have taken a dim view of your written answered prayer?
No.
Oh, okay. When you've seen her, is she friendly? Do you share bon mots? Do you talk about, what do you think of Iran? Or
No, well, I haven't seen her since Iran.
Right.
By the way, you know the Shah and Faradiba are very good friends of mine.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
I thought they'd escaped somehow.
I went to stay with them in Iran about 5 years ago. I knew them originally from Switzerland because, you know, I used to spend every winter in Switzerland. And I was a very good friend of Faradiba, who's a charming, delightful, and there is a very intelligent, sensitive person. And I like the Shah very much. I think all this is a terrific tragedy because, of course, and it is true, all the corruption in Iran and the Iranian royal family, but the country, the way it's set up, the complications of it, he really was trying very hard to make all sorts of social improvements in education. Gosh knows the Iranian women were emancipated to an extraordinary degree.
If you were to discover that he had $2 billion in Swiss bank accounts and American stocks and real estate, would you be aghast?
I would assume that he did.
Would you think that was...
Because he's not a dope.
Should a man loot his country?
I think it was his own money.
That he inherited from Dad?
Well, he inherited, look, his...
Oh, come on. He stole the country blind.
I don't believe that. I believe, I believe completely that his relatives did an awful lot of, I don't think that they did it without his knowledge, but I don't think that the Shah is basically a dishonest man. I really don't.
His relatives?
I know a great deal about Iran. And I know that all of my most intelligent friends, like Alex Colbert, who does the column for the Village Voice and has been, you know, writing very strong against the Shah for years now. And I know many my friends who could not possibly be more anti-Shah, but I know a number who know him as well as I did and who agree with me. And I think that they will come to regret this, because the business of the mullahs and the leftists there making a combination together will never work. It's all going to end in some kind of credible civil war.
When you were a guest of the Shah, did he have those lovely little peas and tomatoes and potatoes?
Yes, he did.
Did he?
And marvelous caviar, too. Golden.
Golden.
Only the Shah has it. It's not brown or gray. I mean, it's not black and it's not gray. It's golden.
And what about little unborn lambs?
Well, this golden caviar is unborn caviar or unborn sturgeon. Come, David, get with it. The war's over. Come out of the trenches.
I'm coming out of the trenches in the next segment. We'll be right back.